Hello and welcome to Middle Passage Day 3. I am a little bit late. I'm like 2 hours late, but so far it's been consistent. Um, Slightly 2 hours past the due date from yesterday, but consistent in the sense that we are 3 of 80 days honoring my ancestors for continuing to stay alive during this time while they were on a voyage to a land they knew nothing about, and they stayed alive and their ancestors stayed alive and they stayed, you know, as well as they could, survived as well as they could. And because of that, they kept um, me alive in the process. And because of them, I have this opportunity to go after my dreams. So thank you, ancestors. Now, let's go and move forward into why we're talking today. It's a little bit late, so my brain's a little bit wonky, but definitely going to continue on this live today. So today I'm talking to you about a client and how this client's mother and father wounds are affecting their ability to trust. Now I'm going to keep the name of the client out of this because of privacy reasons. So I'm going to refer to this person as the client. However, with this particular client, this person is very successful, and even in their success, it didn't take the pain away. The pain that they experienced because of their mother and father wounds. Well, it's a little bit like weird, the angle, isn't it? I'm doing it from my phone, so hopefully it's okay. But either way, there's still going to be value. So listen to my words more so than look at what I'm doing. That being said, this particular client has achieved external success, achieved material success. This particular client shows up as a leader. However, there's still a deep mother and father wound because this particular client was able to dig deep and still become the person that they desire to be in many aspects. Let me just read what I wrote because my brain is a little bit foggy. It's a little bit late. It's 2 a.m. here in California, actually 2:11. So this particular client dug really deep to become the person that they desired to be and to acquire the success that they have acquired monetary wise, to acquire the life that they desire, to travel around the world and do what they love. But this client also had to find a way to push past the limitations caused by their mother and father wound, and they did that to achieve the external success. However, um, even though that they, were able to push past the inner critic caused by their mother and father wounds that said that they couldn't do it, it would never amount to anything. This client was able, yes, to use their pain from their childhood as a purpose to power through and to achieve their desires. But inside, the pain from their mother wound and father wound manifested into deep sadness. Okay, there you go. It manifested into deep sadness. And that sadness didn't prevent this client from showing up, but the sadness does, unfortunately, you know, prevent this person from showing up fully in their relationships. Oh man, I wish the angle wasn't so. Okay, maybe that will be okay. So it does prevent this client from showing up fully in their relationships. Like, yes, this client is able to, create generational wealth. Yes, this client is able to be seen as a leader. Yes, this client is, showing up in their fullness externally to garner success in the material world. However, but inside, the client feels betrayed. The masculine and feminine figureheads in this client's life didn't provide the foundation of unconditional love that this client truly needed. And because of that, there's an element of feeling unsafe to love others. Okay, my brain is starting to kick back in. And because this client doesn't feel safe to love, it has manifested into a deep distrust of others. Now, this client feels distrust because this client felt rejected by their mother and their father. And this feeling of rejection has created gaping, unhealed mother and father wounds. Now, Because this client had felt rejected by their parents, this client also rejects themselves. And I'm going to explain more about that later on, so make sure that you continue to listen. And if this resonates with you so far, and if you're someone that knows that, hey, I'm successful, but there's still some mother and father wounds that are preventing me from truly experiencing life to its full capacity, truly experiencing life and all of its pleasures, all of its gifts, send me a DM so we can schedule a call so we can find out how we can work together and how I can support you on your mother wound and father wound healing. Okay? So, because this client has rejected their parents because of feeling rejected by their parents, okay, let me make sure I say that correctly. This client feels rejected by their parents and therefore rejects their parents in return. And because of that, it causes them to reject themselves. Because if you cannot experience wholeness with your parents, it prevents you from experiencing wholeness with yourself. Now, I want to make this clear. When you experience wholeness with your parents energetically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, it doesn't mean physically that you have to go and pick up the phone and be like, hey, everything's okay now. We good now. It's not going to be like that for most people. For most people, it's going to be the way, for the most part, close to how it's always been. But on a healing journey, you can give yourself what you need without the external validation from the parents that you have. It doesn't mean that you'll ever have everything that you need from your parents, but if you can give that to yourself and no longer reject your parents from your end, it opens up the door for an area of wholeness and acceptance of yourself as well. So make sure you listen to that again. Rejecting your parents is rejecting yourself. Accepting your parents for who they are within you, not physically, within you, energetically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, will free yourself up for acceptance as well. And you'll experience a new level of wholeness by doing this type of work. And that new level of wholeness will have a ripple effect in your relationships. That's what we're talking about today, but also in your career and your ability to walk your path. Okay? So, if this resonates with you, I want you to ask yourself how it feels to have gained a financial status in your external world and still feel like something isn't right. To still experience rejection and have that rejection have a ripple effect in different areas of your life. How does it feel to feel unsafe to love? How many years have you felt this way? How many years have you thought, just like my client thought, that the success would make the pain go away? And really, you still feel that gaping wound, and nothing seems to satisfy that gaping wound's hunger for more. So if this resonates with you and you're someone that has achieved monetary success, you show up for others. You're a leader in your own realm. But deep down, you know that there's a feeling of rejection that you experience due to an unhealed mother or father wound. And father wound, it could be both, that cause you to experience a deep and strong distrust of others, causing you to be blocked from building mutually beneficial relationships. Send me a DM so we could talk about working one-on-one together. So, that being said, let's continue with how this client's feeling of rejection due to their unhealed mother and father wound causes client to not only reject their parents but also to reject themselves. When you don't have a strong foundation of safety as a child as to how your needs will be met, this causes your limbic center of your brain to cultivate feelings of shame, feelings of victimhood, perhaps feelings of uncomfort around being vulnerable. And this also can cause your limbic center of your brain to cultivate the illusion of safety in different experiences. It may confuse danger with safety, with needing to feel safe. Let me make sure I say that correctly. It may not be able to recognize the difference between areas of danger that you need to feel safe from and experiences that you may default into safety measures, but really you're blocking yourself off from an experience that you need. Okay, let me know if that makes sense. Ask me questions in the comments. So, for example, in the case of my client who is still finding ways to feel safe in trusting, the client feels safe in distrust because the distrust provides a secondary gain or a hidden benefit that the client is protecting themselves from the pain of their trust being violated. So, their ways of cultivating safety are to put these huge protection shields up around them. And they've confused danger and needing to protect themselves from danger with really them having poor coping mechanisms for cultivating safety because they do not want to experience the pain of their trust being violated. Let me know if that makes sense. Ask me questions in the comments. So, the client's way of protecting themselves from not experiencing the pain of their trust being violated is a hidden benefit. Shielding their hearts is a hidden benefit. But really, it's not a healthy decision that's going to help them build trust in their ability to cultivate mutually beneficial relationships. And because they do this because there's a wholeness that is lacking in themselves. And this lack of wholeness is due to their unhealed mother and father wound. And they don't feel safe to trust. And they don't feel safe to fully love because love actually comes from feeling safe to trust that their love will be respected and safe and returned in many ways, right? So there's a deep seated feeling of rejection that this client has experienced due to their unhealed mother and father wound, and it causes them to reject themselves and it causes them to cancel out themselves from mutually beneficial relationships by garnering and holding on to the hidden benefit of protecting themselves from their trust being violated. Now, here are some steps I use to help this client. So take notes because if anything, like I've said, resonates with you, it will help you too. And remember, if anything that I've said on my posts or in this live has resonated with you, if you're someone that knows that, hey, I'm successful, hey, I've been doing all the right things, but still there's this block in me being able to build and cultivate a wholesome relationship because I know, because you know, I'm saying I know, because you know that there's some sort of inability to fully accept yourself because you know that there's some unhealed mother or father wounds, send me a DM so we could talk about working together one on one. So, going back to this client is not a victim, even though they have been victimized by being rejected by their parents. They are not wallowing in victimhood. It may make them sad. They may have days where they do throw themselves a pity party. And hey, you're allowed to do that. Give yourself the time and space to say, hey, I'm not feeling it right now. Give yourself that time and space to do that. You don't have to always say you're okay when you're not. There is such a thing as positive avoidance where you're saying, I'm okay, let's keep it positive, but really you're not giving yourself the time and space to feel what you need to feel. And then that's a form of repression too that eventually comes up and blows up in your face. And that actually has a lot to do with the father wound and the masculine part of us, because we're both masculine and feminine, Yes, at me, like I identify as a cis woman, so I add more toward the feminine aspects as a cis identifying female and being comfortable in my divine feminine. However, that wasn't always the case. But that inability to, and I'm going on a tangent now, but that inability to truly harness your feelings and, downplaying your feelings and saying I'm okay, that comes from a father wound and repressing your feelings. And then what does that do? It causes anxiety to manifest into anger. And now you cultivate boundaries from a place of safety, from a place of I need to feel safe from everything, excuse me. And that anger gives you gives you the illusion of being able to cultivate boundaries, but really it's a false confidence that you need anger to create boundaries instead of being able to healthily communicate your boundaries. Anyways, let me go back to what I was saying. So this client is definitely not a victim. And while this client experiences deep sadness, this client pushes through, educate themselves daily, becomes a better version of themselves every single day. This client uses the rejection from their parents not to wallow in sorrow and instead uses it as an excuse, as a reason to accomplish more. Not an excuse, and a reason to accomplish more. This particular client has chosen to identify not with the wounded self, but with their their who they aspire to be. And they've chosen that over and over and over again. And it's just such a beautiful thing to know that you can choose who you want to be. So, that being said, choose what you will identify with. Every day, take micro steps toward that identity. So, if you're someone that's choosing to be bold and take courageous moves, if you're someone that there you go, lost you for a bit. If you're someone that's choosing to own their sovereignty, if you're someone that's choosing to say, I'm going to learn how to trust, not in my impulses, but in trusting that I can feel safe and cultivate safety. That is a choice that you can choose to identify with every single day. And each time you take a micro step toward that identification, it becomes a micro shift every single day. Little micro shifts every day accumulate into macro shifts. And that's how you create forward movement and momentum. That's how you get out of being stuck in the mud doing the same things you've always done, being the same person you've always been. That's how you start cultivating, almost like you can shift into a different time warp and wormhole where instead of wasting years of your life doing the same exact thing, next thing you know, things start to move much faster. And it's just by taking those micro steps every single day. Also, know that rejecting your parents is rejecting yourself. And I said this earlier. No, and I know that may be hard and triggering for some, but if there you go. I need to hurry up because my internet's going down. If you're really on the path of wanting, ooh, there you go. Mm, okay. If you're really on the path of wanting to be whole and in your fullness, if you're someone that is truly wanting to accept themselves, you have to accept from where you came. And that means accepting your parents, which means healing your mother and father wounds. And this doesn't mean that you'll always, that you'll be able to mend the relationship. And it also doesn't mean that there's something necessarily wrong with the relationship either. It doesn't mean that. It just means that there has to be some sort of healing within yourself so that way you can really own your fullness and wholeness without certain limitations that may not have been yours in the first place, preventing you from doing that. And also, make sure you give your parents a little grace. And this is something that I work on the daily, okay? Like, hey, you don't know what you don't know. And I give myself some grace because I'm still on the healing journey. I'm always going to be on a healing journey. And I know that I passed on some of my own wounds to my kids. And I would hope that they would give me some sort of grace too. So, that being said, know that you can heal your mother and father wounds energetically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally within your body without the need to physically heal with a particular person. Healing happens within. Now, begin the process of visualizing your parents coming towards you. This is something that's very important because you have to prime your body to be able to accept your parents from an energetic perspective, too. This will help align how you interact with your outside environment because you're aligning the wholeness from within as well. So start visualizing your parents and notice how you feel when you see them in your visualization. Does your body contract? Does your body feel tense? Do you instantly be like, okay, back up, like I don't want you in my space? Or on the flip side, do you feel expansive? Do you feel relaxed? Do you feel at ease? Pay attention to how these things feel. And the more relaxed and at ease that you feel when you do visualize your parents, the more you are accepting of them. And the more that energy will be accepting of yourself. Okay? Now, know that the more you accept yourself, the more you'll be able to feel more whole and accepting of you and create a foundation for you to feel safe to trust. And that will help you feel safe to create mutually beneficial relationships that feel whole. The wholeness is created in you by fully accepting yourself. And that can only happen from fully accepting your parents. And this, once again, only happens from fully accepting and healing your mother and father wounds. And I shouldn't say even fully healing your mother and father wounds, because that's something that's going to take, you're going to find different things over time that have affected you as you continue to excel on your personal development journey. You're going to find something. That's just how it is. At higher levels, you'll find higher levels of healing and of personal development, I should say. So at higher levels of personal development, you'll find higher levels of healing that you encounter, which means there's going to be higher levels of shadow that you encounter. So it's just all a process and just enjoy it. Now, by doing the exercise that I described earlier, so make sure you go back and take some notes. Take some notes on what I'm telling you to do because they have been effective. And some of these exercises are what I do with my clients to help them shift. So, especially if you're someone that wants to create a relationship that feels expansive, that wants to recreate your safety measures and change what you make safe for you, that wants to hold space to have an equally yoked counterpart, and you want to have a relationship where you have fully accepted all parts of yourself, and you want to attract a partner that has fully accepted themselves, or at least is doing the work to do that. That is how you can recreate your safety measures. That's how you can recreate how you feel safe enough to trust, to feel safe enough to love, and ultimately to feel safe enough to build a mutually beneficial relationship. So, if you are someone that is successful, you have gained that monetary, prestige, you are someone that has been, gained some sort of external material wealth, but you know that internally there's still some things you have to pick apart. And I shouldn't say pick apart, it's more like unpack. You still have to unpack, you still have to fine tune the way that you interact with the world because there's some deep-seated I shouldn't say issues because I know that word's a little bit triggering. There's a deep-seated wounds that need some healing. Then you have to heal your mother and father wound. You have to do this in order for you to truly build a mutually beneficial relationship that feels good to be in. It's time for you to stop wasting years of your life being with the same type of person, which means that you have to become a different type of person to attract what you truly want. So, if this is you, send me a DM so we can work together one on one. Thank you so much for watching Middle Passage Day 3. I'll be on later today for Middle Passage Day 4. Um, it's been awesome. I can't believe I've already done 3 days. So thank you so much for watching this live. This is Radiance Thompson. Thank you to this client that allowed me to tell their story. I truly appreciate and love you so much. You know who you are. Sending you so much love and sending everybody that's listened to this so much love. Radiance Thompson, Middle Passage Day 3, signing off.